Verses 21 to 25. We have here the issue of the distress of Paul and his fellow travelers. They escaped with their lives, and that was all, and that was for Paul's sake. We are here told, v. 37, what number there were on board: mariners, merchants, soldiers, prisoners, and other passengers, in all 276 souls. This is taken notice of to make us the more concerned for them in reading the story, that they were such a considerable number, whose lives were now in the utmost jeopardy, and one Paul among them worth more than all the rest. We left them in despair, giving up themselves for gone. Whether they called every man on his God, as Jonah's mariners did, we are not told. It is well if this laudable practice in a storm was not gone out of fashion and made a jest of. However, Paul among these seamen was not, like Jonah among his, the cause of the storm, but the comforter in the storm, and as much a credit to the profession of an apostle as Jonah was a blemish to the character of a prophet. Now here we have the encouragement Paul gave them, by assuring them, in the name of God, that their lives should all be saved, even when, in human appearance, all hope that they should be saved was taken away. Paul rescued them from their despair first, that they might not die of that, and starve themselves in that, and then they were in a fair way to be rescued from their distress. After long abstinence, as if they were resolved not to eat till they knew whether they should live or die, Paul stood forth in the midst of them. During the distress hitherto Paul hid himself among them, was one of the crowd, helped with the rest to throw out the tackling, v. 19, but now he distinguished himself, and, though a prisoner, undertook to be their counselor and comforter. He reproves them for not taking his advice, which was to stay where they were, in the road of Lacia, v. 8. You should have hearkened to me and not have loosed from Crete, where we might have made a shift to winter well enough, and then we should not have gained this harm and loss, that is, we should have escaped them. Harm and loss in the world, if sanctified to us, may be truly said to be gain, for if they wean us from present things, and awaken us to think of a future state, we are truly gainers by them. Observe, they did not hearken to Paul when he warned them of their danger, and yet if they will but acknowledge their folly, and repent of it, he will speak comfort and relief to them now that they are in danger. So compassionate is God to those that are in misery, though they bring themselves into it by their own incogitancy, nay, by their own willfulness, and contempt of admonition. Paul, before administering comfort, will first make them sensible of their sin in not hearkening to him, by upbraiding them with their rashness, and probably, when he tells them of their gaining harm and loss, he reflects upon what they promised themselves by proceeding on their voyage, that they should gain so much time, gain this and the other point, but, says he, you have gained nothing but harm and loss. How will you answer it? That which they are blamed for is their loosing from Crete, where they were safe. Note, most people bring themselves into inconvenience, because they do not know when they are well off, but gain harm and loss by aiming against advice to better themselves. He assures them that though they should lose the ship, yet they should none of them lose their lives. You see your folly in not being ruled by me. He does not say, now therefore expect to fare accordingly. You may thank yourselves if you be all lost. Those that will not be counseled cannot be helped. No, yet now there is hope in Israel concerning this thing. Your case is sad, but it is not desperate. Now, I exhort you to be of good cheer. Thus we say to sinners that are convinced of their sin and folly, and begin to see and bewail their error, you should have hearkened unto us, and should have had nothing to do with sin. Yet now we exhort you to be of good cheer, though you would not take our advice when we said, do not presume, yet take it now when we say, do not despair. They had given up the cause, and would use no further means, because all hope that they should be saved was taken away. Now Paul quickens them to bestir themselves yet in working for their own safety, by telling them that if they would resume their vigor they should secure their lives. He gives them this assurance when they were brought to the last extremity, for now it would be doubly welcome to them to be told that not a life should be lost when they were ready to conclude they must inevitably be all lost. He tells them that they must count upon the loss of the ship. Those who were interested in that and the goods were probably those greater part that were for pushing forward the voyage and running the venture, notwithstanding Paul's admonition, and they are made to pay for their rashness. their ship shall be wrecked. Many a stately, strong, rich, gallant ship is lost in the mighty waters in a little time, for vanity of vanities, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Not a life shall be lost. This would be good news to those that were ready to die for fear of dying, and whose guilty consciences made death look very terrible to them. He tells them what ground he had for this assurance, that it is not a banter upon them, to put them into humor, nor a human conjecture. He has a divine revelation for it, and is as confident of it as that God is true, being fully satisfied that he has his word for it. An angel of the Lord appeared to him in the night, and told him that for his sake they should all be preserved, v. 23:25, which would double the mercy of their preservation, that they should have it not only by providence, but by promise, and as a particular favor to Paul. Now observe here the solemn profession Paul makes of relation to God, the God from whom he had this favorable intelligence. It is he whose I am, and whom I serve. He looks upon God as his rightful owner, who has a sovereign incontestable title to him, and dominion over him, who I am. Because God made us and not we ourselves, therefore we are not our own but his. His we are by creation, for he made us, by preservation, for he maintains us, by redemption, for he bought us. We are more his than our own. As his sovereign ruler and master, who, having given him being, has right to give him law, whom I serve. Because his we are, therefore we are bound to serve him, to devote ourselves to his honor and employ ourselves in his work. It is Christ that Paul here has an eye to. He is God, and the angels are his and go on his errands. Paul often calls himself a servant of Jesus Christ. He is his, and him he serves, both as a Christian and as an apostle. He does not say, whose we are, and whom we serve, for most that were present were strangers to him, but, whose I am, and whom I serve, whatever others do, nay, whom I am now in the actual service of, going to Rome, not as you are, upon worldly business, but to appear as a witness for Christ. Now this he tells the company, that, seeing their relief coming from his God whose he was and whom he served, they might thereby be drawn in to take him for their God, and to serve him likewise. For the same reason Jonah said to his mariners, I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who has made the sea and the dry land. The account he gives of the vision he had, there stood by me this night an angel of God, a divine messenger who used formerly to bring him messages from heaven. He stood by him, visibly appeared to him, probably when he was awake upon his bed. Though he was afar off upon the sea, PS 65:5, on the uttermost parts of the sea, PS 139:9, yet this could not intercept his communion with God, nor deprive him of the benefit of divine visits. Thence he can direct a prayer to God, and thither God can direct an angel to him. He knows not where he is himself, yet God's angel knows where to find him out. The ship is tossed with winds and waves, hurried to and fro with the utmost violence, and yet the angel finds a way into it. No storms nor tempests can hinder the communications of God's favor to his people, for he is a very present help, a help at hand, even when the sea roars and is troubled. We may suppose that Paul, being a prisoner, had not a cabin of his own in the ship, much less a bed in the captain's cabin, but was put down into the hold. Any dark or dirty place was thought good enough for him in common with the rest of the prisoners, and yet there the angel of God stood by him. Meanness and poverty set none at a distance from God and his favor. Jacob, when he has no pillow but a stone, no curtains but the clouds, yet has a vision of angels. Paul had this vision but this last night. He had himself been assured by a former vision that he should go to Rome, ch. 23:11, from which he might infer that he himself should be safe, but he has this fresh vision to assure him of the safety of those with him.